Welcome to Takeaway with Sam Oches, a podcast for leaders of growing restaurant companies looking to take their businesses to the next level. In nearly 2 decades covering restaurants, I've gained access to some of this industry's most influential decision makers, and I'm letting you in on the conversations. In today's episode, you'll hear from the leader of an innovative fast casual about how to know when it's time to raise money for growth and about what it takes to carve a unique niche in a crowded marketplace. Lance Juhas is the co-CEO of Piada Italian Street Food, a Columbus-based Italian fast casual that has grown to 62 locations in 16 years. Piata was founded by Bravo Brio founder Chris Doody, and it's earned a reputation over the years as a great operator with a one-of-a-kind menu, one that's helped it to 29 straight quarters of same-store sales growth. But to this point, Piata's growth has been slow and deliberate as the company pieces together the right playbook for growth. Well, that playbook is ready. And Lance, whose career included 16 years with Bravo Brio, after stops with J. Alexander's and Hillstone Restaurant Group, is steering the brand into its next growth phase. He joined the podcast to talk about all the little details that go into a great restaurant experience and about the right way to evolve a restaurant business. In this conversation, you'll learn more about why hospitality is the key ingredient that brings customers back, why you have to earn the right to grow, and why you should never take the crab out of the crab case. If you learned something from this episode, go follow Takeaway wherever you listen to podcasts and leave some feedback. It is the best way to get those lessons into the hands of fellow restaurant leaders. Jumping now into my interview with Piada's Lance Juhas. Also, don't forget to stick around after the interview as I will share my 6 takeaways from this discussion, actionable insights that you can take with you on the go. Lance Juhas, the co-CEO of Piada Italian Street Food. Thanks for sitting down with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Sitting down in person here in Columbus, the very first Piada location. We're close to Ohio State's campus. This location's 16 years old now, is that right?
16 years old. It's first one, 2010. I think Chris spent around $600,000 to build it. Mm-hmm. First year did $2.7 million.
Wow.
And so he was like, well, I think we might have something here.
Yeah, that's right. Well, in 2010, I mean, that was probably the very early stages of the fast casual boom. You were just saying when Chris was researching this concept, he was looking at Chipotle, he was looking at Panera. Obviously, those were the two kind of forebears in fast casual. But when he put this together, what were some of the ideas swirling in his head about what he thought Piata could be?
Yeah, really, he, again, spending a lot of time at Chipotle and Panera, just kind of see what the service model, see if he could do Italian in that service model. He really wanted, he thought Italian could work in the Chipotle model. Went to Italy a couple times. I think he had been there about 12 times. Actually went to the city of Rimini, and there was a restaurant owner there, a little older gentleman that he got talking to, and he showed Chris how to make the piadina. So the wrap that we have, flour, olive oil, salt, and took him back into the kitchen and showed him how to do it. And Chris was like, well, I think this vehicle could probably work for the model in the United States. What he didn't want to do is bring the piadina back. If you go to Italy and you see the piadina, it's still thin crust, a little thicker than what our crust is now, and you fold it in half and cut it into a triangle. But he was looking for something of it's a sandwich, handheld. So he was on the plane coming back from Italy and on a bev nap, and he wishes he would have saved the bev nap. But on a bev nap, he kind of drew out how the line would look, for Chipotle. And then he really started to try to model, what's the menu going to look like? We can do the piatas, chopped salads. And the funny thing about pasta was I think he thought about pasta, but really didn't want to have to do pasta. But pasta came out of some of the focus groups that he had at an office building that he has up the street here. For 6 months, he had test groups come in for 6 months to 30 people at a time. He had a line in that office building, so he had a kitchen in the office building, and he would just run the focus groups through there. Mm-hmm. And again, pasta was kind of a second thought. There were some Ohio State players that came in during one of the test groups. They all had a piata, which they said was fantastic. So the chef was asking, was there anything that you would change? He goes, well, we're looking for a little bit more substance. And so he was thinking, I'm going to do this Italian faux pas and do carb on carb. So he had some angel hair pasta in the back, whipped up some angel hair pasta, and put it in a piata, served it back to them, and they said, "This is fantastic." Well, after cooking the pasta, he said, "What am I going to do with this extra pasta?" And that's when they had the epiphany of saying, maybe we should work on doing pastas.
Sure.
And to this day, pastas are 51% of our sales. So it's working.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's working as a maybe an afterthought, because the chopped salads Chris really wanted to do, the piatas, the hand rolled, he really wanted to do as a sandwich. And being in with Bravo Brio Restaurant Group when he founded that with his brother, he had a lot of pasta around during that time, and so I think he wanted to kind of stay away from it a little bit, but it's definitely worked out.
It pulled him right back in. He tried to get away from pasta.
It's like The Godfather, I try to get out, but it pulls me right
That's
back
right.
in.
How appropriate.
Yeah, exactly.
So you were at Bravo Brio.
I was.
So did Chris recruit you to be a part of Piata? How did you get over here to Piata?
He did. I started with Bravo Brio in 2000. Mm-hmm. I left J. Alexander's and went to Bravo Brio. I was the GM here at Brio Easton for about 6-7 months, and then went into multi-unit. I was with Bravo Brio for about 16 years. Mm-hmm. Chris left in 2006 when Bravo Brio was purchased by Castle Harlan and BRS. So both brothers were there at that time. They said only one can stay. And Rick, being the older brother, must have won the coin toss. So that's when Chris was out and started thinking about Piata. And again, I was still at Bravo, but in 2016, 2016, I started thinking about what do I want to do. I've been at Bravo and Brio for 16 years, and just at that time, as I was starting to think about what do I want to do, my phone rang. And it was Chris, and he said, "Hey, listen, I don't know if you know an operator or not, but I'm looking for someone who can help me with operations." And the great thing was, I said, "Oh, you've got him on the phone." So so it was great. 2016, I interviewed with him. I just talked to him for a little while, and again at that time, my wife was like, "You should probably do something different," and that was perfect stepping stone.
The universe was talking to you.
The universe was talking to you. Now, my first stint into fast casual, which was definitely different. I will say it helps if you have a culinary background, if you have a kitchen background. I grew up. My first job was a dishwasher, so I was never a bartender or a server. I would be a good server. Bartender, I only know how to make what I like. But it does help having a kitchen understanding in fast casual for sure.
Yeah.
Not to say if you're just front of the house that you wouldn't be able to pick it up, but it is 90% kitchen.
Right.
Yeah.
You started at Hillstone at Houston's, right?
I did.
And then you went to J. Alexander's, then Bravo Brio. So that's 3 companies that are very, obviously, there's, especially with Hillstone, there's this obsession over operations.
Yeah.
There's this sort of perfection you're chasing. And that's interesting to bring that into the fast casual model. Why is that especially critical to Piata to understand how operations can really help this concept fly?
Well, I think it's all about discipline and focus, really. I mean, it's the same things we did at Houston's and at Hillstone apply here. It's following a recipe to the T. Mise en place in the recipe before you start mixing the things together. Hospitality. One of the greatest things at Hillstone was, my first day. I remember I was in training and I was with the GM. I was just following the GM. And the first table actually had an issue with their steak. And he looked at me and he said, "Lance, I need you to go talk to that table about their steak." I'm like, I barely know the menu at this point. But it was all about really understanding hospitality, really understanding the need of the guest. And the cool thing that they taught you was being able to look at a table and understand if there's an issue at that table or if that table's going very well, if their experience is going very well. Because they were all about the non-obtrusive service. Their service was silent, but they were really all about the hospitality. So it really is about looking at facial expressions. It really is about talking to those guests when they come in. If they're coming in at the host stand or here at the line. You don't know how someone's day is going when they walk in the front door. But they taught you the discipline and focus around every piece of the business.
Right.
Uniforms, One of the things that we used to do at Hillstone's, and they can't probably do this now, is we would line everybody up and check their uniforms. So it was a crease down the middle of the apron. How many pens do you have? Do you have your bank? Do you have your wine key? Do you have your lighter for, birthday candle or what have you? And if any of those were incorrect, you had 10 minutes to fix your uniform. And the Hillstone's I was at was on Rush Street in Chicago, which is no longer there anymore. But they had 10 minutes to get white shoelaces back in their shoe. And there was a white hen pantry around the corner. And I'm telling you, servers, if they had that, they would run, because there were always 5 servers in the bar waiting to take your shift that day with a perfect uniform. And it wasn't about you weren't being mean.
Right.
You were just sticklers about how you wanted to present your restaurant and how you wanted to present how your service was. So it taught me a lot about the disciplines around the restaurant business. Like growing up, started dishwashing when I was 14, and I worked in restaurants. I worked in kitchens from 14 until I went to Hillstone's. I thought I knew what I needed to know. I didn't, but I learned it very quick. And that was the cool thing about Hillstone's, is it was everything was, had a place, had a reason. And really it's the discipline and focus around the business.
Right.
And the hospitality. Hospitality is what brings the guests back.
Every Hillstone veteran I've met in this industry that's running their own restaurant or still in this industry, they're all operating at this higher level, right? So it's like, to your point, it's not about me being mean. It's not about shaming them. It's about saying, hey, we have this higher standard to meet. And at the end of the day, in that moment, everybody's probably stressed and humiliated maybe, but like in the long run, it's setting you up for success, right? So I imagine you guys have a similar standard here at Piata.
We do. It is closing to open. You want to close the restaurant down to be ready to open in the morning. It's talking with the team about recipes. It's, walking the line and looking at the food that's on the line at that point, and does it, tasting everything in the morning. One of the cool things we used to do at Hillstone's and at J. Alexander's is they used to do a taste plate every morning. I'm sure they still do. I know J. Alexander's probably still does. And you tasted everything on the menu to make sure that the profile, the flavor profile was right. The greens were cut correctly for the salad mix. And we have the same, we don't taste so much everything in the morning. When they do a line check, they'll taste the sauces and they'll make sure the temperature's there. They're not making a piata and trying it, but they are trying the chicken. They're trying the steak. They're trying the meatballs. And so we tried to bring some of those disciplines. I tried to bring some of those disciplines that we used to have at Hillstone's and Jay's, and even at Bravo Brio. Because even in those days, it was all about the recipe, the adherence to the recipe. The hardest thing is if you're making marinara, and you're making marinara at Lane Avenue, you want the marinara to be the exact same as in Cotswold, North Carolina. Yeah. Right. And so that's why they were really sticklers, and we're sticklers around the recipe, and really, the production of the food during the shift. Also very sticklers about hospitality. I think, food is what brings, the greatest thing about the restaurant business is it's one of the only businesses that when a guest walks in your front door, they're going to spend money. Yeah. I can walk in the front door of a Banana Republic, doesn't mean I'm going to spend any money. Right. When the guest walks in the front door of Piata, they're going to spend the money that they've worked hard to earn. And for us, we want to welcome them into our house as our guest. And because again, we don't know what kind of day they've had, but we want them to kind of forget about all that, come in, enjoy a great experience at Piata, whether they dine in the dining room or they take it to go. We still want them to understand that it was built with hospitality. That's why we still, at this point, if you get a pasta that's chef created on the menu, they will toss it in a hot pan. So they take the pan, put the marinara or Alfredo, whichever sauce, Diavola, and they'll toss the pasta in that and then put it in the bowl. And when it comes out, it's steaming hot. So one thing you don't see in fast casual a lot is hot food. Yeah. And that's kind of where we've got a little bit of an edge on some of our competitors that we go up against. Yeah. But it is a really cool thing that we do.
I mean, to that end, again, think about 2010 when you guys first opened to now 16 years, the evolution of the fast casual category, right? Because in 2010 to say 2015, you had a period of time where there was a lot more playing with elements of casual dining. There was, which is what you guys I think really are doing here too, right?
Yeah.
Which is like taking it kind of above the Chipotle model to what in the past I used to call sort of a fast casual 2.0. It's like kind of fitting between fast casual and casual even. And then you get 2015 to 2020, you start to have the third-party delivery and online ordering. And then, of course, during COVID, everything's about off-premises and convenience. Tell me about where you kind of see the fast casual industry today and Piata's role in it. Because all through that 16 years, I don't get the impression you guys changed all that much. You kept up with the times, but you didn't change, you didn't like totally change everything to meet the different moments.
Right.
So what is Piata's place in fast casual today?
So today, the restaurant we're in today was built in 2010, like you said. When Chris opened this restaurant, he opened this restaurant with a second make line and a pickup window already here.
Yeah.
So he was, not that he thought, hey, COVID's going to happen in 2020, but he was forethinking that, hey, it would be great if a guest could just come up to the pickup window and grab their food off the second line to help alleviate a little bit of the main queue.
Yeah.
So every restaurant after that, we built a second make line. Now, it may or may not have had a pickup window, but the one thing that Piata has definitely done is elevated the experience of casual or of fast casual with the tables that we have. I mean, they're all white oak wood. The chairs are 500 pounds. Basically, if you try to pull one out, they are so heavy, but they last. And I know it's a little bit of an industrial look, but it's a classic look. And we have the white tile in the back, and it is a little bit of an elevated experience. Now, when we first opened and COVID didn't happen and 60% of our guests were dining in, it was fantastic. It's a great place to dine. It still is. We still have 60% of the guests coming in our building to get Piata, but 40% of those guests are taking it out the door. So right around 20 is still dining in the dining room. And one of the things that we played with in a few locations was we said, after COVID, let's shrink the dining room a little bit. Not that it was a saving money type of deal, but it was only 20% of our business is really, and at that time, because it's actually starting to increase, that time it was right around 15 after COVID. Well, when you shrink the dining room, you lose the ambiance. You lose the hospitality. There are a couple locations that we still have that are open, that are smaller. We have one in Dallas. It's in Mockingbird, and it's 1,500 square feet. It was an old Birds Unlimited that we took, and it has literally 18 seats in the front. Now it does 2.5 million, but when I visit that restaurant, thank God we have a hospitable staff, and the team that's there they're so welcoming. Because when I walk in, I don't always sometimes feel that way about the dining room. And so we did go back to say, hey, we're going to need to go back to the original, hey, let's make the dining room this size, this many seats. Because when you walk in, you want it to feel hospitable. You want it to feel good. And it does feel good when you walk in. And this restaurant's, it's an older restaurant, and it still feels good when you walk in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thinking about the customer, I mean, again, 16 years. So like today we talk all about Gen Z. And if you think about like a 25-year-old today, they were 9 when Piata first opened, right? And I mean, makes me feel old, but thinking about just how much, thinking about how much change the consumer has seen, right? Because I think fast casual really took off with millennials were coming into their own discretionary income, and they were chasing this sort of better experience in fast food. So now you have Gen Z. I'm still trying to figure out Gen Z, but I mean, I think largely they're spending all their time on their phones. So that means to me, they're probably ordering a lot on their phone. But like, there's also maybe bringing it back to, we want the real, we want authentic. As you look at the sort of core consumer for Piata, how do you see what experience are they wanting out of Piata?
They're wanting the same experience that we give every day. They're wanting that experience in-house. Now, yes, they are very good at their phones. They're very good at ordering online. And if they want to come in and pick it up and walk out with it, then that's what they'll do. But I think the one cool thing about Italian is that it's comfortable. It's comforting. That's the one difference when you look at if it's, Chipotle or a Cava. Not that those places are great. Cava's great. We love being next to Cava. But, Italian is comfort food. It is comforting. And if you go to our restaurant in College Station at Texas A&M, those are all, Gen Zs and what's the new gen that's coming up? Alpha or whatever. There's a line out the door. And they're standing in line and they are dining in the restaurant. And I think that they want that experience. They want the food fast and they get it fast. They want hot food. But I think they want that same experience. It's comfortable. And, third parties starting to back off a little bit. Still a little bit of a conundrum sometimes, but I think Gen Z is looking for that one thing that sets you apart from the restaurant next door.
Yeah.
And we do set ourselves apart a little bit from those other from our competitors.
Sure.
So I think that's what they're looking for.
So you as an ops guy, I mean, you've been watching the evolution of what is possible from a tech perspective, from an equipment perspective, 16 years. How would you describe the change of just what is possible for running a Piata kitchen? Yeah,
I need like a year to figure out this AI stuff. No, I'm just kidding. I have smarter people around me to do that. Listen, it is definitely AI has helped, scheduling. It definitely helps with bill twos for the line, ordering food. The only hard part with AI, it tells you exactly what you need to know about, the guests that they think are coming in based on what your past was. We do about 10% of our business comes from catering. And a lot of that is anywhere from 72 to 48 hours out. So it's kind of hard to schedule around that. So sometimes those are on the fly. But equipment is much better than it used to be. It's much easier to use, doesn't always last any longer than it used to. But AI is definitely helping on the scheduling front. And really, it's that predictive scheduling. It's, oh man, how many people do I need on this day? You're thinking it's, what did we do last year? And you're trying to figure it out and you just plug it into Hot Schedules AI platform and it goes, this is what you need.
Right.
Now what it doesn't know is, how many more caterings you're going to have this week. But then you can just add people to that.
Sure.
But yeah, it's definitely different than it used to be.
Yeah.
But it's the same. It's food, it's people, and I keep talking about hospitality, but I think we forget that sometimes. I think the hard thing in the restaurant business is you're chasing a margin. You're chasing sales and you're chasing a margin. And the one thing you don't want to do is take the crab out of the crab cakes. And I use that because in an old place I used to work at, in order for us to make a little bit more margin on a certain dish, we decided we were going to take crab out of the crab cakes. Now, we didn't completely take crab out, but there was lump and back fin, and we decided to take the lump out. And lump is really what you see when you break into a crab cake. The back fin's mixed in there. And that is one thing with Piata that I will never do. I will never take out what makes a dish successful. Now, if it gets expensive, sure, we're gonna try to find a better way to find the same product somewhere else that's less expensive, or we eat a little bit of that cost and kill the guests with kindness and kill the guests with hospitality, and hopefully they come back more often. But I'm not going to change. We're not going to change what's made our recipe successful.
Sure.
It made us successful. So.
Yeah. All right. Thinking about some of that too. I mean, 2010, there was kind of like this race into fast casual, right? So again, kind of looking at, the two biggest factors were Chipotle's success and then the Great Recession. So the Great Recession happens. There's this race to find that intersection of value and quality. And a lot of people are like, well, how do you recreate what Chipotle has done for Mexican into other categories? You guys plant a flag in Italian fast casual. And I think at the time it was like, oh boy, okay, here we go. Who else is going to come up?
Yeah.
You've never really had a serious competitor in this space.
Yeah.
There's some on the QSR side, certainly Italian casual, but why is it that Italian fast casual, in your impression, it hasn't. You guys have really kind of been able to own this corner all to yourself.
Yeah, I think, traditionally you think of Italian, people think of Italian as big table, sit down, the service is not slow, but it's just a little bit longer of a cook time for things, a little bit more, traditional, again, family oriented at a giant table. And so it's not as easy as some of the other restaurants that are out there.
Yeah.
Chipotle is great. I go to Chipotle all the time. But Mexicans always kind of been on an assembly line type deal, right? Fried beans, rice, carnitas, whatever you're going to get. And Italian has never really been that way.
Yeah.
And so it is difficult when we talk about making a pasta. If you come in and order a diavola and you walk in the front door and you go down the queue, they're going to toss that pasta in front of you in a hot pan. Now that is part of the dish. That's part of our hospitality, and there's cost behind that. But there's also something authentic about that, and that part of the authenticity will never take away, and that we do get credit for. And I think when somebody thinks about doing an Italian fast casual, pasta's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy. And again, it's 51% of our sales. It's the, how do you cook the pasta ahead of time, par cook it. Then you got to cool it. Then you cook it again to, bring it back up to temp, toss it and serve it. There are a lot of steps in that. And there are some other smaller fast casuals out there that are starting in Italian. I know Dewey Cucina out of Seattle, great couple guys.
Yeah.
Honestly, they're really great. They're doing a little bit different though. They're doing a little bit on the kind of the Fazoli's model where you order it ahead of time. You bring a number to your table, and then they bring the fresh pasta is what they're using. They bring it out to you in an actual real porcelain bowl or ceramic bowl, and so it's kind of a twist between casual dining and fast casual.
Yeah.
But it's still not fast like a Piata. And I think that's kind of the differentiation between us and some of our competitors. And there have been a lot of trials and tribulations of doing different things. We used to have different sandwiches on the menu, and actually when we first started the company, it was create your own. And the one thing that we found was you could go to Chipotle and you could put everything together on a Chipotle that's on their line, and it will taste fine. Right? If you came to a Piata at that time and you did to create your own, if you order a diavola pasta, which is a spicy pasta, and you put strawberries on it and creamy parm, listen, I'm not a rocket scientist, but that is not gonna taste very good. And I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
I have seen people do that. And so early on, when I came on board in 2016, we were really trying to figure out, okay, why is the attachment rate not as fast as it should be? And we hired an outside company to come in and say, give us the down and dirty, give us what we don't want to hear. And that was one of the big things was, the flavor, ambiance was great. Hospitality is awesome. The flavors were okay. And when we watched it, it was all the create your own flavors that were just okay. And again, that's going to be on us.
Yeah.
Whether I built it or the guests built it themselves, it's still going to be on us. So what we did is we toned the menu down, went more to chef creations. So we had 12 items. We went to 12 items at that time. And so 4 piatas, 4 pastas, 4 chopped salads, and it just took off. When the guest would come in and get something that was chef curated, it just took off. The attachment rate started, they only had to come back two times, and then we had them for life.
Yeah.
And so that in itself is hard because there's a lot of things that are on the line. And we've taken some things off. But I think that was the little bit of a hard, lesson that we learned early on. But the good thing is we haven't looked back since then.
Yeah.
Which has been great.
I mean, it follows a theory that I have that I think customization kind of peaks probably around the time you said 2016, right? Because, I mean, think about some of the trends in customization. I mean, Subway was, people like to give Chipotle credit, but let's face it, Subway kind of created that model.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Subway, no diss to my Subway friends,
Right.
but they've closed thousands of locations, and they pivoted to a signature menu a couple of years ago. Cava has pivoted to a signature menu. You guys obviously did that way before. I just wonder, like, obviously trends come and go in restaurants, but there was something about the customization trend that for millennials, it was like, let them have it their way. They want to do it. They want to choose. At the end of the day, I think there's actually a trust that restaurants and customers have, which is like, I trust you to come up with these recipes.
Yeah.
I want to point at that thing and know that you have my interest at heart, that it's going to be delicious. I think that seems to be more the direction we're all going now. Right?
And I think there's a lot less anxiety when you're in the line.
Yeah.
Even for me now, if I go into a Piata, and you can always tell a first-time guest. They'll stop and look at the menu that's at the front door, and it's mostly men that do this because we don't know what we want until we get up there, right? and you see that consternation on their faces. We used to see a lot of it when it was create your own, and now it's okay. I can look up there and go, okay, you know what? I want the avocado Piata with steak, and okay, that's easy, right? But it was really that consternation of, oh man, is this going to taste good? And we do spend a lot of time. Our culinary team spends a lot of time, going through the menu items that we have now currently and going through those recipes and saying, how can we make this better? They're always questioning themselves and saying, how can we make this better? It's not, how can we make this less expensive, right? We don't want to take so much price and, we're gouging the guests by any means. We want to look at it and say, how can we make it easier for the teams to make it, prep wise and on the line? How do we enhance the flavors, and how do those all come together to enhance the guest experience? And it is a never-ending battle, but it is the fun part about the restaurant business. Right? It's never ending. But we've got a great thing here.
Yeah.
It was a good move for me to come from Bravo Brio to Piata.
Yeah, certainly.
It's been a good move. Yeah.
You're at 62 locations
62 locations today.
Ohio, Texas,
Minneapolis, Pittsburgh, North Carolina, one in Kentucky over in Florence, y'all. And we're looking for next regions, probably either Virginia and Florida, west coast of Florida.
You've been in a little bit of a holding pattern for a little while. And you were mentioning before you hit record, there's a element of really wanting to perfect the operations here. Tell me about that. What is the perfect Piata that's ready to grow again?
Yeah, I think the one thing that we say here is you earn the right to grow, right? I think in any business, you've got to earn the right to grow. You're not going to take a business that you haven't run all the traps on and take it nationwide. That's a blow your brains out strategy. Yeah. And so what we really did was we looked at the operations. We said, okay, how can we make this as simple as possible? And we still look at it daily on how we can make it easier to operate. Because we have to remember when we go to different states, we're now outside of the bubble. Yeah. And it's controlling what you can control. And once you have the playbook down, and you're saying, okay, we're at $2.5 million AUVs is the average. We're throwing off this in margin. This is our net promoter scores. This is our turnover. Okay, we're now ready to accelerate. Yep. We have the team. We've assembled the right people. We've got great support staff. We have amazing people out in the field. And so now is the time for us to grow. We've got our first location. It's a licensing agreement at DFW opening end of summer this year. It'll be in Terminal B. That'll be our first one that's non-traditional. So it's kind of a toe into franchising. Not saying we're going to franchise anytime soon, but it is a toe into that. But we're really bullish on Texas. Texas has been great for us. Mm-hmm. We just opened a new location, first one in San Antonio, in Shirt Station. It's done 100K every week since we've opened. Wow. It's our busiest restaurant right now. So we have a lot of help going there, a lot of people helping out. We have another one open up in the end of the summer in Heavener, just north of Shirts in San Antonio. So,
Sure.
But again, you've got to earn the right to grow.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, we could get, somebody could come in and give us $30 million to grow, and could have done that when we had 20 restaurants or 30 restaurants. And our capital partner now is a private equity partner, is El Catterton. And they came in and said, hey, Chris, and it was before my time, this is what we want to give you, and we were in their growth fund too. But Chris was smart, and he also believes in that you earn the right to grow. So he didn't just say, okay, we're going to open up 20 restaurants in 1 year. Again, blow your brains out strategy.
Yeah.
Because the hard thing is if those restaurants get behind and you have 20, 30 restaurants that aren't producing, that's really hard to dig yourself out of. And I think staying true to what made the first Piata successful is what we do, while continuing to make the operations better. All the time we use technology to help us out, but we're not a technology company. We built our apps internally. Our VP of technology he did the iOS and the Android at the same time and launched them simultaneously. Wow. But we did that in-house. Yeah. We have a daily dashboard that I can get on. The two gentlemen over there, we can get on. It updates every 15 minutes, so I know what every restaurant's doing in sales every 15 minutes. I know how many people they have on, how many people they've done how many guests they've done the last 15 minutes. When was the last line check, this, that, and the other thing. So we do punch above our weight in technology, but we're a restaurant company. Yeah. We're not a technology company. And you can sell yourself as a technology company, but at the end of the day, you're serving food. Right. To guests that come in and they want the food. Yes, it's great that if you have an app that gets it to you faster, fantastic. Right. One of the things we did in Church Station, it's so busy that we did tell our guests that were in the line, if you're looking to get out a little bit quicker, you can get on your phone right now and order, and the second make line we had open, and it'll come up to you in the same amount of time. So, yeah.
Here in a little bit, we're going to try some food.
We are.
Which is very exciting, especially because we're pushing toward lunch, and my belly is rumbling. So I'm excited about that.
Great place to be for
That's
that.
a great place to be.
Yeah.
I'm curious about, again, as you look to the future here, it's funny if you look at the restaurant industry today, because you have the casual dining industry, which is increasingly being dominated by just a few companies. Of course, Chili's, Texas Roadhouse, Olive Garden, which I imagine you compete with to some degree.
Yeah, some degree.
So that's going on in the casual dining. QSR obviously is thriving on discount and value today, especially. And fast casual, I'm trying to get a read on what's going on in fast casual, because there was a narrative last year that it was starting to suffer because you saw Chipotle kind of struggle. Sweetgreen's been struggling a lot. Fast casual sales kind of came down, but there's also this mindset of like, well, at some point, it was doing double-digit comps. Every single year, fast casual was. At some point, it was going to come back down to earth. Put me in the moment today as far as what the guests want out of fast casual in general, because your food is really kind of a notch above. And I suspect where we are at in the economy today, especially, value is so important. I imagine the high-quality food is going to start to become even more important in the next couple of years. Does that seem right?
It does seem right. And I think value is a perception that's different for everybody. Value, when you think of like a value meal at McDonald's, it's, you get a burger, a fry, and a soda for X, right? And so, value for us is, and you'll get a pasta here in a minute and a salad, the pasta, you can actually have two meals. There's no way I'm going to eat that pasta in one sitting. And believe me, I can eat. And so, I think part of the value perception is, what's the experience that I walk into? How's the food? How's the hospitality? How did I feel when I left? And when I finished my meal, do I feel like I got a value for the meal? It's not just the food. It's the entire experience. And I think that, one of the things I don't know Brett Schulman, but I love listening to him.
Yep.
And we did have one walk by in Chicago one time.
Do you some of his magic to rub off on you?
I was trying. Actually, he was coming out of an elevator. We were going on the elevator, and we all locked eyes for a minute.
By the way, he's as great as he seems.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that. I would love to meet him personally. But I also think that he thinks that way. Like, he thinks that he knows it's the experience in the restaurant. He knows it is about the food. He knows it is about what is the unspoken piece that the guest had when they walk out your front doors?
Mm-hmm.
Did they tell the next person that they see, hey, I just went to Cava, I went to Piata for lunch, and it was fantastic. You should try it. Or did they walk out and say, that was just a men's amends?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the guests are much savvier than they used to be. Back in the day, growing up, when I decided I wanted to go into restaurants, I mean, the reason I'm in restaurants is because my mom still has no idea what the kitchen is used for in her house,
Mm-hmm.
right? They used to take me out to dinner. And so, I grew up watching the great chefs of New York or Chicago on PBS. I didn't have the TV Food Network. So I do feel like the guest is much more savvy than they used to be. And again, not that they didn't. Not that they used to be not savvy, but I think that they understand food and understand the expectation and what is their expectation. And I think we try to meet them at what is their expectation, and we try to go above that expectation. And I think that, listen, the fast casual restaurants that are following that model and hitting it out of the park, I think that they will continue to climb and continue to grow. Those who lose their way, and it is easy to lose your way.
Mm-hmm.
Those who lose the way about their food, about their ambiance, about their hospitality, it'll be a long road to haul.
Yeah, it's fascinating because if you overlay this moment onto really when Piata first opened, you had the recession that led the QSRs into discounting in value, which fueled the interest in high quality but quickly served food, which was also fueled by Food Network and Food TV. Overlay that onto now, you have COVID and the economic issues that followed, inflation, which drives the QSRs into value and discounting, which then TikTok and Instagram become that filter for the younger generations, which is, well, I see this chef on my TikTok doing this, and then I want to go, find that high quality food at the restaurants today. And so if we follow what then happens afterward, from 2010, as you well know, you saw the boom in fast casual really take off because it was that perfect intersection of value and quality. And so you guys aren't reinventing the wheel here. You've really just been doing what you've always been doing.
Again, we saw that create your own wasn't the way. You can still come in and create your own if you want. But we saw that wasn't the way. And before I came on to Piata, I was in the casual dining world. And it was all about, where are we going to get those next guests? Because it was about the value. And, I think we were doing very well at that time, but losing your way a little bit because you were trying to figure out what is the value proposition that guest wanted at that time when I was in casual dining. And it was what they want. They wanted what fast casual is doing. And I don't think that that's going to go away. And it's funny you bring up Chili's, and Chili's has been around forever. I think my second job in high school was at Bill Knapp's, and I grew up in Michigan. Was at Bill Knapp's, and there was a Chili's that opened up next to us. And my best friend at that time came to me and goes, "Well, this is my last week." And I'm like, "Where are you going?" He goes, "Going to Chili's." Now that was in 1987. And that Chili's is still there. So they really they had what it took. They did some things that probably took them off their path a little bit, like not having any servers out front, ordering on, from your table, and you never saw really anybody. And then they kind of went back to that value play and went back to putting people in the dining room and went back to what their roots were. And again, you do have to change some things here and there, bring it in an LTO or, maybe change the inside look a little bit with, not as much orange and more black or what have you for a Piata. But don't change what got you to the success. Right. Just continue to build on that. And don't change the hospitality. Again, going into a restaurant may have great food, but if you don't feel welcome going in there, are you really going to go back? Are you really going to go back?
Totally.
And, I think the one thing that we do is we try to, again, value-wise, try not to raise prices, keep things very reasonable. And I think the funny thing with Piata is, you can get a lot of food for a pretty decent price. Again, a pasta could last you 2 meals, for $14. So,
looking at the future, you feel clearly like you've earned the right to grow. You mentioned that, you guys are in this position where it's like, okay, everything, the table is set.
It is set.
So where do we go from here? What do you see as being the next few years? What's a key unlock for Piata to step on the accelerator?
It's definitely some capital,
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's the discipline behind that capital. Whether it's a strategic or private equity, or if it's debt, which no one's ever a fan of, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it is having the disciplines around that, and understanding if you get X amount, how many are you going to build? Where are you going to build them? How much are they going to cost? And do we have the right people in place to continue to do the successful things that we're doing now? We're in 29 quarters of same-store sales growth and traffic. Now, there are some quarters in there where the traffic was a little less than some of the others, but 29 quarters of that. And we're now starting the 30th quarter in the same trajectory. So we've been doing a lot of things right. Still learning as we go.
Mm-hmm.
But would love to go into a couple of new DMAs. I think Virginia, Florida, Tampa, the West Coast. Florida trades a little bit like the Midwest. So really looking for we want to look for a partner that doesn't want to change anything,
Mm-hmm.
that understands the success and can help us continue to grow, get some synergies. And let's take this thing to the moon.
Sure.
Because I'm not getting any younger.
None of us are, unfortunately. I'm not great at math, but if I'm doing those numbers correctly, I mean, that included COVID. You guys kind of grew through COVID?
We were even in COVID.
Wow.
So we were able to say we were under the when they closed everything down. We went on. We went below in traffic and sales. But as soon as they opened things up, we rocketed back up and we ended even.
It's amazing.
So we do circle that one when we look at it, but even's even.
Yeah,
it's great.
Take the win when you can.
Take that win as we could. So that was a tough time. But the cool thing was we were already ready with second make lines and pickup windows. So we didn't have to change anything. We didn't have to bring any more new equipment. We were ready to go.
Yeah.
Which was awesome.
Thinking about that, obviously we've all rehashed that season enough that we understand what that all looks like. But kind of going to the challenges we're facing today. I mean, any number of them, take your pick, right? We're still dealing with inflation. We're still dealing with a shallow labor pool. We're still dealing with, we're now dealing with surging gas prices.
Yeah.
What is keeping you up at night? What's the kind of biggest concern for you that you think hinders Piata's growth?
And, people always keep me up at night.
Yeah.
When it comes to, what is the one thing that could really, outside of, knocking on wood, one thing that could kill the business, foodborne illness, knocking on wood again, that'll kill anything. But, it's the people, it's finding you hit on it. It's finding the right people. Not as many people want to get into the restaurant business. I think third party delivery is hurting the business. I mean, that is a margin drain that we never really saw before COVID. I think DoorDash and Uber were just starting to come on, but it wasn't 7 or 8% of your sales, or 20% of your sales, I should say. It wasn't costing you 7% of your sales. And I'm just using that as an arbitrary number, but I mean that is a number that we never really had to worry about for third party.
Right.
And now with us in business, 20% of our sales is third party. Now, it's still sales.
Yeah.
And if I can get a first time guest through a third party, great. But there's a lot of blocking and tackling that goes around that to try to make up for the cost of that service. And at some point, it's going to have to give.
Right.
I mean, it's the two behemoths. It's Uber and it's DoorDash.
Yeah.
And they're both big in different DMAs. Uber's really big in the big cities of like New York City, Boston, what have you. And DoorDash is very suburban. Again, good services helps us get our stuff out there, but that keeps me up at night also, because it's a cost that's real, and you've got to think about that cost.
Yeah.
And how do you get that guest that uses third party to come use your first party?
Right.
Because that's very hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard to, when somebody's used to doing X, Y, and Z, it's very hard for them to say, oh yeah, I'll come on yours, even though it'll save them money.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
this is where AI is really interesting, because I'm just back from RLC and I had a lot of conversations around AI. And, nobody in the restaurant industry likes to say they're going to replace people. And at the end of the day, this is the hospitality business.
It is.
And you need smiling, friendly faces to make the food and serve the food.
Exactly.
But, AI, the way it kind of flattens the competition to some degree, because now suddenly a mom and pop, a Piata, and a McDonald's are all a little bit on the same playing field as to some of the tools that AI provides.
Right.
And obviously, I don't expect you're going to say, yeah, we're going to go replace all our people. But going back to that AI thing, like, maybe could solve for some of the people part of this, automating things, even helping in back office stuff. Do you think about those kinds of things?
Yeah, back office stuff, we're definitely using things AI-wise at the support center when it comes to finance. And there are a lot of things that AI can do that make, like, ending, when you go to finalize the period, there are things that you can throw at AI now that'll do in, 30 minutes that it used to take someone to do it a day to do. I don't know if, doing the prep, AI is never going to go back there and do the prep.
Right.
Sure, there are things that maybe a robot can do. The one hard part is saying that, I'm going to automate the front line. What if somebody wants to change their order in the middle of the automation?
Right.
You can tell the robot, hey, stop making that. I don't want beets on that. I want X. You can't do that, right? Mm-hmm. And the interaction's not there. That you lose that hospitality piece. Mm-hmm. But there are a lot of things that, yes, it can do the ordering for us based on, what it thinks your sales are going to be. All those things can be done. You still have to put an eye on it and say, yeah, but we've got, $80,000 worth of catering coming out this week you didn't know about, and we have to throw this on there. But it can definitely help that way. I can't remember what the company was I talked to. It was a couple of years ago, and they were working on the face recognition when you walked in the restaurant. And the face recognition, they were going to really try it out in like New York City. And when you walked in the restaurant, it would recognize your face, and it would order your most up-to-date favorite order. Now, whether or not you wanted that, but we are mostly creatures of habit.
Yeah.
When I order at Piata, I get an avocado chopped salad, or I get a chef's favorite Piata. Just depends on my day and how I feel. But if the AI knows that and says, well, let's see, the last 3 times Lance came in, he ordered an avocado chopped salad, and it does all the math for you. Today, he's probably going to order a chef's favorite Piata.
Yeah.
Now whether that works or not, if it does, I'm taking it to Vegas. But I think that's kind of cool because, then you don't have to use your app. Although apps are easy, but you can just walk in and, it knows, hey, Sam wants to order, the double cheeseburger and XY and whatever else you want.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
He wants to drive 30 minutes to Freddy's and get that burger.
That's right. Yeah. It's funny because if you think about, I think with new technology advancements, as soon as a new advancement is out and we see what is possible with it, we shoot for the moon, or we take this huge swing, or we go way past where that technology really can benefit us.
Yeah.
Self-driving cars, drone delivery, robot servers. It's like we know these things are possible, and therefore we imagine a world in which those are possible.
Yeah.
Reality is, it ends up settling down to something much more realistic. And so AI being a great example. I went through a drive-through that used AI in the drive-through. I won't say whom. Because I put it on my TikTok. I filmed the whole thing, put it on my TikTok. The comments were just like, who wants this? This is so inauthentic. This is not what I want from that restaurant when I go through that drive-thru.
Right.
And I think there's some truth there, which is that I understand AI in the drive-thru will someday be normal,
right,
and be very helpful to the restaurant industry.
Right.
But it's we're not there yet. What you have to use AI in some of those invisible capacities that the customers are not seeing. I think maybe to some degree it's a customer facing versus not customer facing, because it's we can imagine these futuristic scenarios, but at the end of the day, especially in restaurants, guests expect something very human and very old school, I guess.
They do. Do you think, with that in mind, do you think Chick-fil-A would be as successful as they are today if they used that platform?
Not at all.
No way.
Not at all.
Like, we laugh when we go do on development trips and we're in there with a broker and we look at the sales out of Chick-fil-A. And I know they were just talking about it. And we make up words of saying, oh, this one's only doing 11 million. It's like, the one down the street was doing 15 million. Mm-hmm. But there's no way that those restaurants would do that if they didn't have if they didn't have their team members out there and looking you in the face and giving you a smile, welcoming you to Chick-fil-A, and then you leave and you're like, wow, that was great.
Yeah.
There's the young ladies out there in a tent because it's pouring, right?
Yeah.
But there's something to that, right? And it's good. Like, Chick-fil-A is good.
Yeah.
But are there better chicken sandwiches out there? Probably. But what you don't have is that team member that's out there smiling at you, welcoming you to Chick-fil-A and thanking you and telling you have a great day and come back and see us again.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that restaurant with facial scanning.
Yeah.
It's almost like if you do something like that, that has to be upfront the reason you're coming here.
Yeah.
You're coming to check out this restaurant. It makes me think of in Boston, there was a restaurant called Spice, later acquired by Sweetgreen. All robotics, right?
Yeah.
And it was again taking a new idea to the extreme of what was possible. Mm-hmm. Ended up selling to Sweetgreen. Sweetgreen was playing around with the technology. I don't think it's going anywhere.
Right.
But it was like, if you set the expectation for the customer that when you walk in here, you're getting a fully robotic, automated experience, then they're not expecting a my pleasure from the person in the drive-thru.
Sure.
And it's like, you have to do that up front. And I don't know, to some degree, you must be thinking about that too, which is like, we're setting an expectation for the guest, and then we're delivering on that expectation. We're not throwing in a wrench to mess with their expectation.
Yeah. I think if you know that up front, sure, that's the expectation up front. But what's the percentage of guests that actually want just that experience?
Yeah.
Right. It was funny when I used to work for Houston's. I worked downtown Chicago, and yes, it was busy. It was a busy restaurant. But guests used to come in and sit down and have a full lunch. Mm-hmm. And they wanted the experience. They wanted that experience. And that's why they went to Houston's. They knew the quality was going to be there. The consistency was going to be there. And I think that's that continues to be what drives guests to Piata. The consistency is there. The hospitality is there. Welcome you in the restaurant. Thank you at the cash when you're leaving. Can't wait to see you again. And sure, there are probably some things that I would go in and want to, a quick, hey, see my face, order it, and I'm out.
Yeah.
If I was working in New York City, sure. I mean, I'm sure everything's mobbed, and you just want something quick. But do you really want to do that for dinner?
Right.
And is that really what you want to hitch your platform on? Meaning, do you really want to have a restaurant company that is all technology, all robots? I mean, think about it. The ghost kitchens. Mm-hmm.
They were supposed to be $1 trillion industry.
They were supposed to be $1 trillion industry. And then we figured out, well, wait a minute. Nobody sees who you are. Mm-hmm. Nobody sees a face. Yeah, DoorDash can come and pick up the food, or you can go there and pick up the food. But it's just a transaction.
Yeah.
It's not the experience of saying, hey, I'd love this, or, oh man, I want to try this for the first time. And it's, hey, how do you feel about, what's your favorite Piata? Right? You can't ask a robot that.
Right.
And and you have a team member smile at you and say, I love the avocado Piata, which we have for you today.
Nice. Oh, that tom-tom's starting to rumble harder. Again, it's the trust, right?
Yeah.
Like what we were talking about before, which is, there's a trust that is, yes, do I trust my phone and certain AI things on my phone to work? At the end of the day, it's like, I really only fully trust what's happening in front of me and, that I can see with my eyes, and that's a human being, right? Yeah. And if you do it over and over and over again, and if I know I come to Piata over and over again and I get the same consistency, same quality, we have that expectation, that trust share between us. Yeah. And I just don't think you can replace that.
Yeah. If you're going to buy a washer and dryer and you ask AI, hey, what's the washer and dryer? What are the best value washer and dryers that I should look at? Mm-hmm. Sure. It's going to take all the information that it knows. It's going to say, hey, these are the top 3. And that's going to tell you, but for the best money, this is what I would do. For the longest, best warranty, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
Great. Who wants to go look at washer and dryers, right? Again, when you're coming to have a meal, and you want the hospitality, you want the experience, AI could help you with that, but is it really going to give you that experience?
Well, going back to that example, if your friend tells you this is the washer and dryer you should buy, again, trust.
Yeah,
it's exactly. You know other things. You're my friend. I know you make smart decisions and other things. Therefore, I think I can probably trust you to make that decision. Or a salesman on the floor who you make a connection with. Even you may not know them very well, but if they're a smiling face, they're tending to your needs.
Yeah.
You might trust them a little bit more than whatever it's said on my phone. So,
exactly.
Turning our eye back to the future, though.
Sure.
I'm curious about your perspective. You're looking for capital, like you mentioned. It's my impression that we still got a lot of capital on the sidelines. There's still a lot of investors kind of holding back. And really ever since COVID, it's been sort of, is next year going to be the boom town? Is next year going to be it? What is your perspective on what's it going to take for that money to start kind of flooding the marketplace again?
That's a great question. It looks like it's been, everything you read in all the publications, it's there's a lot of angst out there, not knowing what one tweet might do. Yeah. Right. And depending on whatever side you're on, but I do still think that there's angst out there and pent up demand, and there's money on the sideline saying we want to jump in with something cool. And not just us, but those who have the money to go out there, or to at least make that, have that transaction, have that money go to work, because that's what it's all about. Having that money go to work. That's what it's there for. And I think it's starting to loosen up the things that you read. If you look on LinkedIn, deals that are happening outside of distressed deals or things coming out of bankruptcy or what have you. I think there's some things that are starting to loosen up a little bit. Listen, it's you can't help what some of the outside influences make you think, but at the end of the day, what is really important, and what's really important is this. Yeah. You can only control what you can control. You can't control what someone's going to tweet at 2:00 in the morning. I can't control what my wife's going to buy off of Amazon later today, but I can control the experience in here. And I think that anything that's hot, anything that has the legs, anything that's definitely worth the look and worth the time, I think we'll get the look and we'll get the time.
Yeah.
Again, it's for us, we want to do the right thing with the right people. And if it doesn't happen, then we continue to do what we're doing.
Yeah.
We can only control what we can control. And that sometimes is hard enough.
Sure.
Right. Being in this business. So I think we'll see things start to loosen up a little bit. I think some things will start to get deployed, I would believe. That's all I know about that.
Yeah, sure. This is the part where I sensed there was food. I should have sat over there so I could have seen it coming.
You could. It's
I didn't
here.
know if it was going to come on over. Okay, so we have some food that is going to arrive.
We do.
And swing it in here. Holy smokes. Okay, what are we looking at right now, Lance?
So here we have our farmer's market salad with salmon. This is our new pasta. It's the marinara burrata, and it's fantastic. It's taken off, and it is one of those great pastas with, when we brought on burrata, I was saying to myself, because we did try something, a piata with stracciatella in it, and it did all right. I think the stracciatella scared people, and I was like, okay, the chef team came and said, okay, we're going to do burrata marinara, and I was like, I think burrata is pretty mainstream at this point. It is fantastic with a little pesto on top. And then we have the avocado piata. This has chicken in it. Also very good with steak. And then we have our 3 piata sticks. And one is pepperoni. One is Parmesan. And the other one is spinach and artichoke in the middle. Funny thing about the piata sticks. Now they're fantastic. But more of our guests that get pasta buy a piata stick.
Interesting.
So not only do they want a pasta, but they want a piata stick, which is fantastic.
Carb on carb, sure.
Carb on carb. I'll take it. I'll take it all day long.
Right?
But it is kind of funny. You would think, if I got a salad, I can do a stick. No, it's all the pasta. Yeah.
So are these intended to be sides? How do you see
they're intended to be
occasion?
sides. They are intended to be sides.
Okay.
And we do at this location, Upper Arlington is a high school, close to here. They used to have lunch where you could go off campus and come to lunch. I don't think they do the off campus anymore. But when the students used to come here, we would have students come in and they would get 3, and that would be their lunch, right? But they are intended to be sides, and they are very good on the go. But they're great with anything. They're great if you have it on the side with a salad. Whatever. My wife is tiny, and she'll get a pasta, and she'll go, I want a parm stick also. I'm like, I know you do, and a cookie.
That's right.
And a cookie.
Oh, man.
But yeah, dig in.
Well, and these 3 right here, I mean, it shows you the 3 core platforms. I mean, again, I think if you think of a lot of other restaurants, they've got one of the core platforms.
Right.
They don't have 3. And you mentioned, what is like the division of sales across like the 3?
So pasta's 51% of our sales,
right.
and then it hovers between 24 and 26 between the piata and the salad.
Yeah.
Right now the salads have started going up to 26%, and the piatas will probably back off a little bit, but let's just call them 25. So,
sure.
But yeah, 51%. And it's amazing. Now this one's been sitting over there for a minute, so if we open it up, you wouldn't probably be able to see the steam. But that is the cool thing about the pasta is that it is hot.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing that another differentiation part of us is, we're in Minnesota. If you're in Minnesota in January, are you going to get a salad or are you going to get a hot pasta?
Right.
And when you think of other, fast casual restaurant companies, is the food really hot? Is their main dish hot? And I think that we get a lot of credit for having this. We have more sales at dinner than we do at lunch. It's probably if we took catering out, because catering is about 10% of our sales, it would probably be about 55% dinner and then 45% lunch. Because catering kind of skews the lunch because the majority of it's at lunch. But we skew more at dinner. And when you look at the day parts for other fast casual, most skew more at lunch than dinner. So we are seen at for a different level, and dinner's a little bit different price point. We don't raise our prices anymore, but guests get order more food at dinner than they do at lunch.
Right.
So that's, and we really saw that take off at COVID. We were still heavier at dinner, but not as much. But at COVID, I think the guests were seeing us as a dinner play, and it really took off and just hasn't looked back.
Right. Well, and you have salmon. I mean, like that's such
salmon.
A difference for fast
We've had
casual.
that since day one. Also, yeah. And it's fantastic. Grilled to order, and it is really good. It's a great salmon.
Yeah. You mentioned the Minnesota and winter thing. I mean, do you see an ebb and flow of the share of sales? Do you see colder times pasta, salad maybe more in summer? Do you see that?
Yes.
Because again, I mean that is a lever most fast casuals don't have available to them, which is that like I would have guessed based on the fact that you're fast casual that the piatas or maybe the salads are going to win the day because that's what a fast casual is expected. But to have pasta, I mean, honestly, it tells you a lot about what people think about Italian food, which is that I want pasta when I go to an Italian restaurant.
Well, the cool thing also about Piata is our guest base is so diverse.
Yeah.
We have a restaurant, a sister restaurant. We have a lot here in Columbus, but in Bexley, and it is super blue collar, which is fantastic. And there's a line to the door. I mean, that restaurant's doing 3.8 million.
Wow.
And it's hugs up against it's on the edge of Bexley, hugs up against Columbus, proper, and it just goes gangbusters, and it's a lot of pasta. And that is the pasta side is what gets you. When I look around the dining room, and again, there's a gentleman sitting to our left, your right, my left, younger kid, he's eating a pasta. a pasta and a Piata pocket.
And it's 11:10.
And it's 11:10. Now, he's probably 18 years old and can do that.
Yeah, that's right.
But when you look around, it's like, okay, yeah, you'll see a lot of pastas at lunch, more salads and piatas at lunch than pasta, more pasta at dinner, of course. But for a value, again, if you don't eat this in one sitting, you can put a lid on it and take it home.
Right.
And we do see a lot of that.
Yep.
Which is great.
Well, I'm going to dig into this.
Go for it.
This has been fantastic. So thank you so much for your time, Lance.
You got it.
I'm hungry, so
dig right in.
All right, appreciate your time today.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
That was my interview with Piada's Lance Juhas. So what should you learn from this interview? Here are my 6 takeaways. My first takeaway is that your customers will tell you what your star menu item is. I love the story that Chris Doody, who founded Piata, he had come out of Bravo Brio. He was looking for his next big project, and he wanted to get away from pasta. But as he was developing Piata, they sampled some menu items with pasta. Guests fell in love and they said, we want more of this. So they put pasta on the menu, and sure enough, it's about half of Piata's sales. I think this story is so emblematic of the fact that you think you know what your star menu item is, what your core menu might be, but until you open the doors and you serve your customers food, you really never know what they're going to embrace. And it might be something completely different than what you expected. My second takeaway is that hospitality is the key ingredient that brings customers back. Lance has this fascinating career because he worked for Hillstone, which is renowned for its hospitality, and he worked for J. Alexander's and Bravo Brio. Of course, all of these are full-service restaurant companies, all of them known for better service, better hospitality, and he brought that into the fast casual setting at Piata, and he knows so much about hospitality, and you can tell from this interview as he gets really into the nitty-gritty details on what hospitality can be. As Lance put it in the interview, he said, it's all those little details that you see from a guest when they walk in the door. What does their face look like? What emotions can you read on them? What is the cleanliness of the restaurant look like? What is the friendliness of the staff? What is the ambiance of the restaurant in that moment in time? All of these little details factor into that experience that you're providing for the guest. And if you want to provide great hospitality, you have to be paying attention to all of those little details. It's interesting. Lance said something that I thought was really fascinating. I've really never heard it said this way before. But he said restaurant industry, restaurants are the only business where somebody's going to spend money from the moment they walk in. They're not just perusing the restaurant to make a decision, probably, which they might at other retailers. They came in because they want to have a good experience. But if you want them to come back, you've got to wow them. You've got to show them why your restaurant is the best choice for them, to show them that they were right when they made that decision to walk in your doors. And your hospitality, all of those little details that go into controlling a great experience for your guest, those will decide whether that guest has that good experience and decides to come back. My third takeaway is that you should never take the crab out of the crab cakes. I love this. It's, seems so obvious, but Lance was sharing an anecdote from his past when he shared that story of a restaurant that was taking actual, lump crab out of a crab cake, where the actual flavor of the crab kind of comes from. They were trying to cut some corners and save some money, and they made that decision. And it's become this great anecdote for him to share when it comes to why you should never change what makes your restaurant great. If you're looking at your menu and you're looking at your experience for places to save costs, you should never, ever, ever touch anything that makes your restaurant special, that is a differentiator, because those are the things that your customers fell in love with. Taking crab out of crab cakes makes no sense at all. People order crab cakes because they like the taste of crab and they want crab specifically. I'm sure that restaurant got punished by customers after this happened because it's probably not going to taste anything like the crab cake they remember. And that's the point Lance is making as he talks about how to steer Piata into the future, how to evolve this business for more growth to come. It starts with not changing those special things, those things that make Piata great. They feel like their menu is in a great place and they don't need to tinker with it anymore because guests love it. If they were to change it or try to cut corners simply to save costs in order to afford them to grow a bit more, it just would not work. My fourth takeaway is that customization is not for everybody. I get the sense that customization might be making a comeback. I think fast casuals do for another wave of momentum here in the coming years as we hopefully push away from some of the deep discounting going on right now. And with that, you'll probably start to see a lot more customization. You hear more about Gen Z desiring customization when they're choosing where to dine out. But Lance's story of, Piata's story of really how customization can go wrong at a place like Piata is a story that you would do well to remember if you're looking at customization for your own restaurant. Piata, it's Italian fast casual. And so when it started, it was in the vein of a Chipotle, but with Italian flavors. And you could build your own Piata, a wrap, build your own pasta bowl, build your own salad. And they, at some point, were collecting data and saw that customers were not ranking them very highly on flavor. And when they looked into that, they were discovering that customers who were customizing their menu were dinging Piata for some of the flavor choices, not themselves, because of course they would never blame themselves. And so Piata's really simplified things and gone to signature menu items, 4 Piatas, 4 pastas, 4 salads, and that the rankings have improved tremendously. And so that's a great lesson, because I think customization works wonderfully for Chipotle. It works wonderfully for sandwich concepts. In a lot of different ways, customization makes a lot of sense. But in Italian, maybe that doesn't make as much sense, because these are flavors that guests are maybe not going to be as comfortable with or as familiar with, and maybe not know what are the right combinations that are going to work. They will never blame themselves when something goes wrong on the menu. They're going to always blame the restaurant. So not just to get your own credit, but really to help drive repeat business, you may consider not doing customization if it is not a good fit for your type of concept. My 5th takeaway is that you have got to earn the right to grow. That was a direct quote from Lance. I think it makes so much sense. We can all point out several restaurant companies out there who have grown too fast, who made that decision to just race through as many stores as they possibly could. And then we all watch as the wheels start to come off. Piata's taken a pretty different approach, obviously. 62 locations is a lot, but over 16 years, really, that's a fairly slow growth pace. And as Lance said, is they've worked this whole time to try to earn that right to grow, which basically means they have worked that whole time to pull the playbook together that will get them to this national mainstream success that they believe is possible for Piata. That requires a tremendous amount of patience. It requires a tremendous amount of discipline. And Piata clearly has shown both of those in spades, as it's waited for 16 years to say to itself, okay, we're ready for that big time. We're ready for the show. We are going to chase national growth because that playbook is ready. When you're in your own growth mode at your own restaurant company, consider the fact that fast growth, even if it might mean a lot more locations, that is not always the healthy path to take, because you maybe didn't earn that right to grow. A cautionary tale, as Lance says, is, imagine if you open 20 restaurants and then those 20 restaurants are underperforming and you're left with this hole to dig out of across 20 restaurants, not 4 or 5 restaurants. That's not a good place to be in. Get the playbook ready, make sure your brand is healthy, and then pursue growth that is smart for your brand. My 6th and final takeaway is that a guest's endorsement is gold, and it's harder and harder to get. All of these details around this great hospitality that Piata provides, all of this, the great, explanation that Lance gave us about what it takes to have a great restaurant experience, this experience at Piata that they've built over 16 years, the things that make that work. It all comes back to wanting the guests to not only leave happy, but leaving so happy that they go tell their friends and family, you've got to go check it out. That endorsement, as Lance and I talked about in this interview, that is worth so, so much. How much more do you trust your friends and family for a restaurant recommendation than you do the internet or some TV commercial, right? And so your goal should be wowing your guests so much that they're going to go give that endorsement. They're going to spread that word of mouth. But as Lance pointed out, guests are savvier and savvier today. They have more and more choices. They've got their phone, in their hand at all times. They've got all of these choices available to them. And so it kind of sets the bar higher and higher for getting that endorsement. But that's what you should chase. How do you impress your customer so much through your food, through the store ambiance, through your hospitality, through those little differentiators in your concept, that they walk out the doors and tell everybody they know that they got to go eat at your restaurant? That should be the goal in the experience that you create. Those are all my takeaways for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe to Takeaway wherever you listen to podcasts and leave some feedback. You can also email me at sam.oches@informa.com. Thanks again, and talk to you next week.